Welcome to Central Missouri Alumni Stories. I'm your host, Cory Bittner. On this show, we talk with alumni from the University of Central Missouri and ask them to tell their stories. Today's guest is Nick Bianco. Nick is the co-founder of Kansas City Custom Hardwoods. All right, Nick, thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm excited to talk with you about everything that you and your business is doing, and then also a little bit more about your background, ultimately what led you to school at UCM, the road from there that kind of got you to where you are today.
Okay.
Obviously, the sort of goal and purpose of the show is to talk with people about, their stories and their journeys and their road that got them to where they are today. And then specifically around how the university and the education that they got when they were in school has really kind of helped prepare them for the success that they're having now. Obviously, the hard work is yours to to put in and to do, of course, but I think that education is really kind of the bedrock and the foundation of that. So just to kind of get us started, Nick, why don't you just talk a little bit about, where are you from?
So I am from the Lake of the Ozarks, Missouri, a small town there called Gravois Mills. It's like the town where everybody's been there, but you don't realize it. Like everyone's driven through there 1,000 times, or it's on the lake, so there's plenty of like bars and stuff that are there. So you might have gone there to visit and didn't realize you were actually
for a weekend.
In Gravois Mills.
Yep.
Yeah, but it was it was your typical small town growing up, but it was great. It was a lot of community, a lot of everybody was involved in everyone else's lives.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you get back to the Lake of the Ozarks very often now?
We do every so often.
Sure.
Yeah, not as much as we'd like to, but we still have a house down there and everything. So.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good. So you grew up at the lake. What led you to Warrensburg? Or what led you to UCM?
So it's kind of a non-traditional story.
Okay, good.
Okay?
We like this. Yes.
Are we
please.
speaking candidly
yes,
here?
Yes,
Is that
of course.
All right? Okay.
Fire away. Everybody's got their own story, but we really enjoy the non-traditional or unconventional ones.
So growing up, everybody urges you to go to college or whatnot, your teachers or your friends and family and everything. But towards my last couple of years of high school, I never really intended to go to college. It just wasn't something that I was really focused on. But lo and behold, all my friends, turns out they were. Mm-hmm. And so growing up in a small town, I had a core group of friends that I really hung out with, thought I was going to be with for the rest of my life, right? It turns out all of them were going to CMSU at the time.
Okay.
So, I didn't want to be the one guy left out, not
that didn't go.
College. So I was like, okay, I got to get my stuff together. And luckily for me, my principal at the school was a really good guy. He's one of those guys you either really love or really hate.
Yeah.
And I really loved him. And he was urging me to go to school. So I went to him and I was like, okay. How do we figure this out? How do I go to college still? All my friends are going to college. And he's like, well, you got to take this test, the ACT, and then you got to fill out your application. I got the application, and I'm like, man, I don't have any extracurricular activities. I wasn't in any clubs, so I was like, I got to do really well on this test.
Sure.
So I took the test, filled out the application, and sure enough, I got accepted.
Excellent.
And turns out it wasn't something I intended to do, but it was one of the best decisions I ever made in my entire life.
Which is great, and I want to come back to that, but I do want to ask, when you were in high school, at the time when you didn't plan on going to college necessarily, can you sort of go back in time in your mind to then, and what did you envision yourself doing? Do you have an answer to that question? It's okay if not, I'm just curious.
Yeah, so the Lake of the Ozarks survives on two main industries. One is tourism, and the other one is construction for the tourism industry, right?
Makes sense.
And that's where I kind of grew up, was in the construction aspect of things. So, my dad ran heavy equipment and did excavating work, and I guess I just always envisioned myself taking on some sort of business like that.
Okay. Did he have his own business?
Yeah, my dad ran his own business. Yeah.
Okay, good. So, anyway, you ended up following your friends to Warrensburg.
I did. Yes.
Which there's nothing wrong with that.
Jumped on the bandwagon.
How did what was your experience like? Whether it's obviously extracurricular and social, there of course is a lot of fun to be had in college. Of course, we were in college at the same time, so we can both speak to that.
Right.
But as far as your education goes, I mean, when you did the switch flip, you went off to college and you were just locked in and ready to go, or otherwise?
Otherwise,
Okay.
for me, yeah.
All right,
Still
so let's talk about that.
Sticking with the non-traditional path, right? It was, so my first year of college, I obviously didn't really intend on going to college, so I don't think I took it very seriously. I got just absolutely terrible grades and lived the party lifestyle and whatnot.
Yep.
And high school was really easy for me. Like the classes and stuff, I just got through them really easily.
Sure.
And so I figured, hey, college will probably be the same. They're pretty much the same classes because it's all general ed. And turns out college takes it a little bit more seriously than high school does. Yeah.
As it should be.
Yeah, so I kind of put the same effort into college as I did high school and got terrible grades. And it was at the end of the first year, I got a letter that said, hey, you didn't do well enough here, so you're kicked out of college, or whatever that letter said. Yeah. And it was kind of a rude awakening for me. And I was like, man, I got to figure this out. I was like, I can't leave college. All my friends are here, you know? So I appealed to the university and asked, you know, what do I got to do to stay in college? What do I got to do to stay here?
Wow, really? Okay.
And they basically made me write this letter, tell me what I did wrong, what I was going to do better, that type of thing. And then they're like, we'll review it and we'll get back to you. And thankfully, they let me back into college. And I decided from that moment, I was like, okay, this is real. I'm buckling down. I'm doing this. And I just dove like headfirst into it, decided I was going to study, I was going to go to all my classes, I was going to do all the work. And sure enough, second year on, college was great, the best experience for me.
That's good. It's interesting that you say that, because the question that I have sort of that comes from that is, do you think, or do you feel like the way that was handled, or do you, maybe not the way it was handled, I think maybe the question I want to ask is, by you getting that letter, you know, going through the appeal process, you know, the reality is the university having something like that in place.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like that kind of is what made you realize, okay, I need to take this seriously, or I don't want to screw up this one chance I've got.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Well, and I guess it was a heavy dose of life experience, you know?
Sure.
Because when you're a kid, you know, 17, 18 years old, you know, everybody else is pretty much handling everything for you.
Right.
And then all of a sudden I get a letter saying, no, you're rejected. You can't do this anymore. It was like,
yeah.
uh-oh, you know, yeah, totally. That process for the university is what really woke me up and said, okay, this is real life. Nobody's handling this for me anymore. I got to go after it.
That's good though, but that was kind of the start of the, correct me if I'm wrong here, but, you know, maturation or growing up or sort of becoming an adult. Right?
Yeah, that's
sometimes
a really good
it takes a smack in the face like that though in order for that to happen.
I haven't been smacked in the face very often, so yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So when you first went off to school though, before your freshman year, had you declared a major? Did you have an idea of what you wanted to study or what you were interested in?
So I kind of did, but I kind of didn't.
Okay.
You know, after I got accepted, you know, then I went on my college visit or whatnot, and they were like, well, you got to pick a major, you know, you got to figure something out. And I had always, this is kind of a more non-traditional story too, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
But I was like, you know, I guess I've been in business and, you know, my dad's in business. And
sure.
I guess business will be a good general field to study. I didn't want to be one of those kids that didn't declare a major.
Right.
So I was like, I'll declare a major, it'll be business. And then I figured out what all the different degrees were in business, and I thought marketing sounded cool. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. And so I declared business and marketing as my emphasis. And, you know, my first year, I didn't do very well.
Sure.
I think I had a semester where I had 3 Fs and a D and a B. Like, it was that bad.
Really?
Yeah. And 2 of those classes happened to be like major classes for marketing. And turns out you can't retake those classes. So whenever I decided I was going to buckle down and do things right, I had to redo all my general ed classes. And I couldn't redo the marketing one. So I was like, well, I'm not going to buckle down and do everything right, just have a terrible GPA at the end. So I switched my major to business management.
Okay.
And it ended up being, again, one of the best decisions ever. I really, really connected well with my management instructors. And if it wasn't for them, you know, I probably wouldn't have the same education. So business management is what I ended up with.
And did that, you declared that major after your freshman year, going into sophomore year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, good. Now, was there, as far, I guess part of business management, I'm sure that there's some marketing involved in that.
Right.
Right? Yeah. Certain marketing classes, but it's just, it's not the same degree, obviously.
Right, and there's accounting and finance. It's just a little bit more general, I guess you could say.
Sure. Did you go through I remember when I was in school, and I frankly don't know if the program still exists, but I remember there was some type of, I think it was like an integrated marketing class where I think it was marketing, where the students had to come up with a product and have a strategy and a plan and everything to sell it. Were you a part of that?
I was actually the president of my
you were?
group. Yeah, the Integrated Business Experience.
That was
what
it.
it was called, yeah.
IBE, that's right. Okay,
one of the best experiences I've ever had in college.
Really?
Yeah.
What, so tell, I mean, if there might be people that are watching or listening that aren't familiar with it, what sort of was involved in that?
So basically the way it works is you have a full semester of being a part of starting your own company.
Okay.
So you start out in a class of like 100 people, and then they break that up into 3 different companies.
Okay.
And then as a company, what you have to do is you have to develop a product, you have to actually go pitch a bank on why they should fund your product, and then you actually have to have it created, and you have to go sell it, and then you have to pay your bank loan back. And the idea is that at the end of that, any profit that you have, you donate to charity.
Okay.
So
nice.
we donated ours to Habitat for Humanity, and
Sure.
I want to say at the end of it, maybe we had made $12,000 and $8,000 was profit, $6,000 was
Nice.
profit, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
So we donated that all to Habitat for Humanity, and they used it on one of the houses they were building.
Okay, so which is great. If you were part of, if the 100 people was broken into 3, so you were basically the president of the group that was roughly 30 people?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
What was the product?
So we sold hoodies.
Okay.
Yep. And it was called Habitat Hoodies was our company.
Nice. Okay, good.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, dude, it was crazy. Yeah, you think that, your students and peers are going to be your best customers. Wasn't the case. Luckily for us, it was like right before Christmas. So all the faculty was really our best customers, bought all the hoodies for their kids.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Did the product have to be tied to the university?
Yeah,
Okay.
it had to be, yeah. And you actually had to go through the university's approval process too. So I don't remember all of the people, but like since we were using the university logo and we were changing it a little bit, well, the marketing people had to look at it. Yeah, and we had to actually have their creative team help design it to make sure it was correct.
Okay, that's pretty neat. What year was that of college for you? Was it your senior year, junior year?
Junior year, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty good though to think from the experience that you had your freshman year, right? And then becoming the president of that company sort of internally in that program just a few years later.
Yeah, and I actually, that's one of my favorite memories from UCM is being a part of that program. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, the one thing I'll never forget about that program was one of the first couple days, like becoming president of that class. It really helped me start to take charge of my path academically, I guess you could say, kind of as a leader. Mm-hmm. I can tell you the story if you want to hear the story.
Yeah, please.
So it was, so you're sat in a room with 30 people, and most of them you don't know, right? And you have to elect company leaders, which is obvious, right? Somebody's got to lead the company. And I remember sitting there, and whenever it was time to elect the president, there was this girl that stood up and wanted to be president. And she was the only one that stood up. And this class, you're in there for 4 or 5 hours, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Okay. And then you have plenty of like project work outside of it too. So like you're going to be
a big part of that semester experience. Yep.
It's the entire semester.
Okay.
Yeah. And I remember thinking to myself, I was like, man, I really like her. She's a nice girl, but I don't want her to be the leader of this company. If I'm going to spend this much time in it, and it was kind of that voice in the back of my head that was like, Nick, you got to do this. You got to stand up.
Really?
You got to do this. And I'd never been the person that had taken like a leadership role in the class or anything. And so eventually they were like, okay, does anybody else want to run? I was like, okay, I'll do it. I'll have to. And I stood up and I went down to the front and gave my pitch and my spiel. And
did you have to be prepared to give your pitch and your spiel right then and there?
Right then and there. Okay. Yeah, like you knew it was coming, but I didn't intend to do it.
Right.
And then, and then all of a sudden I was like, man, there's only one person. I was like, it sounds really bad, but I don't mean it bad. She was a really cool person, but I was like,
no, I'm sure. No, I get it. I understand. Yeah. You wanted to sort of, you wanted to lead your own charge. Yeah, I get it. You wanted to carve out your own path. So, and then was there a vote?
Yeah, so we went out in the hallway and everyone voted, and it felt like it took forever, and came back in and they had voted me president. And I was like, wow. And so it was like that experience right there. I was like, man, I can do this. And then our company did really well.
Yeah, that's great.
That I was like, from now on, I'm just going to take charge. And I started like taking more leadership roles in more classes. And I always think back to that very memory of that's kind of how I got the ball rolling on being a leader or an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's good stuff for anybody who's listening or watching, because I think I personally feel the same way, that there's a very specific moment that I can tie things directly back to, that I think it has to do with when, one, you sort of push yourself outside of the comfort zone where you say, you know what, I'm going to go do this.
Yeah.
And then two, for you getting a vote of confidence from everybody in the company, right, or in the class, it's kind
Right.
of like, all right, well, expectations have changed now. I'm not just going to be one of the group, like I'm going to be the person in charge.
Yeah.
So there's just a level of, dedication and commitment and just sort of seriousness in which you have to take that.
Yeah.
And then once you do that and you actually have success doing it, it's like, wait a minute, maybe I can do this. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe I should continue looking for other leadership opportunities and entrepreneurial opportunities that might exist for me down the road. And
yeah, well,
that's where you are today.
The vote of confidence too, like I said, was from strangers.
You read that too.
You know a handful of people,
Sure.
but 20 of those people I'd probably never spoken to to. So
nice. Okay, good.
Yeah.
That's no, that's really good. I'm glad that we ended up kind of talking about that. Do you consider that to be? I think you said that was one of your best experiences or memories from college.
Totally.
Any other, fun, interesting memories or experiences from when you were in college that you look back on those years and think, I'm really glad I did that? Extracurricular, academic, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I'd say going to college was probably the best first start.
Yeah, that's a start, right?
Right. I think a lot of the friends that I have now today in life came from college.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny that my friends led me to college, and then those friends didn't finish college. But the friends the group that I have today, I met all of them there, and hanging out with them and living with those guys was probably one of the best experiences. And we played in a band together and had a good time. So
yep, lots of good times were had. So.
Right. Yeah,
that's good though. I feel I feel the same way, and I would encourage anybody who's thinking about college or where they're going to go or what the experience is going to be like, or if someone's encouraging neighbors or coworkers or someone's children or grandchildren or whatever it might be. I think it was very much the same experience for me, because I was from I grew up in St. Louis, went off to college with a lot of friends from high school, have stayed friends with some of them, made a lot of new friends, ended up in a new city where I felt like I was at home,
right,
because I knew so many people here to begin with, and have kind of planted our roots down, started our business here, and this is where I'm going to be for good. And those relationships that I have with those people that I met from those 4 years that I was in college are relationships that I anticipate that I'll have forever.
Right. Yeah. Same here.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So then, that's all good stuff as far as your time in college. So, what do you know when you were in school? I'm curious. What was your dream job? What did you see yourself doing, or what if you could have done anything? What would it have been?
I have no idea.
Really?
I don't think I knew what I wanted to do. I think
that's fair.
I'd always wanted to be in business for myself.
Okay.
I'd always known that.
Sure.
But what that business looked like, I don't think I really had a good pulse on it.
Okay. That's fair. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I just kind of, I don't know.
What's
I don't have a good answer.
Okay, good. No, that's okay. When you graduated, though, business management degree, what was your first job out of college?
Sales.
Okay.
So I worked for a company called Fred Pryor Seminars and Career Track Training, which has since rebranded to something different. But yeah, I was a sales rep. The company sold soft skills training.
Okay.
So it was kind of cool going from being in a university to being in a company that does training.
Sure.
And it was like management training, leadership training, customer service, time management, Microsoft Excel, that type of stuff. But that company was great. And working in sales there, it was a full commission job. So it was kind of like running your own business. They taught you everything you need to know about the company, taught you everything you need to know about sales. And we're like, okay, here's your territory.
Good luck.
Go for it. Yeah. And they were really supportive, had great mentors, and it was a wonderful company to work for. But yeah, that was my first job. And I was scared for the full commission aspect. But after living it for a year, I was like, man, I couldn't imagine anything else other than this.
Understood.
It was all about the value of work, right?
Yes.
I always hated the fact that if I work for the same company as somebody else and we both make $15 an hour and I work harder than that other person, why are we worth the same amount of money?
Correct.
Right? So I loved the fact that, working in sales, I could actually make the amount of money that I was worth.
Right.
So, yeah.
And you start to, and I think you take your time more seriously.
Right.
Right. I mean, you recognize where you should and shouldn't be spending time.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you're, where everybody has vices and guilty pleasures and everything else, right? But I mean, something like that, you have to be driven. You have to be motivated. You have to be a self-starter, and you have to have discipline.
Right.
Or else it's not going to work.
Yeah, you don't sit there and make 50 cold calls a day without having some sort of motivation behind you.
Exactly.
And a paycheck is a pretty good motivation.
Nice. Good. So
Yeah.
how long were you there?
I was there for 5 years.
You were? Okay.
Yeah.
And then so obviously you were working for Fred Pryor Seminars, in sales, business management degree. Now you're the co-founder of Kansas City Custom Hardwoods.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the transition from Fred Pryor to what you're doing now.
Okay. So from Fred Pryor, they started to restructure their company a little bit, which, every company has to evolve.
Sure.
And I guess I just wasn't on board with the restructure. And I wanted to get out and do something for myself. I didn't like being in a cubicle and I was, traveling for some of the sales meetings and stuff. And It just wasn't the life I wanted to live. So I decided to get my real estate license. So and luckily I'd been there long enough and done well enough where they actually were very supportive of me doing it. So,
oh, really? Okay, nice.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's great.
Right, yeah. So I got my real estate license and I had something in the back of my mind. I was like, okay, I'm going to sell real estate on the side. And as soon as I can make 3 months worth of the same income I would make at Fred Pryor, then I'm going to quit the Fred Pryor job and I'm going to jump into real estate. Like 3 months projected, so I wouldn't, me and my wife wouldn't be out money, right?
Sure.
So it took me, I don't know, a year, 2 years, something like that, before I built up that clientele.
Okay.
And sure enough, as soon as I got that signed contract where it was, I hit my projection, I was like, okay, well, now's the day. It's time to leave the corporate job and go off and do something for myself.
Nice.
And so that's what I did. And I went in and I talked to my sales manager and put in my 2 weeks or whatever. And they didn't need 2 weeks. It's a sales job. You can have 2 days and then you're gone.
You're right.
Somebody else is going to take your territory and start making money there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I went into real estate and I was in real estate.
Also sales, obviously.
Also sales and building my own business up. And so I was in real estate for a while and I worked for one company and it ended up being the same corporate feel. So I switched to a different company that was more supportive and more entrepreneur minded and focused on me building my business instead of working for a business. And while I was doing real estate, Jay Norris, he's my business partner, he's been building furniture since college. Since we were in college, he's been building furniture, and the story of like how we got started KC Custom Hardwoods from a technical standpoint is really his story, right? But where I became involved in it was, one day I'm selling real estate. Jay's working for Farmland Foods, and he comes up to me and goes, Nick, I built this table. It's a really cool table. But I didn't build it for anybody in particular. You sell things for a living, right? Think you could sell my table for me?
Really?
Yeah. I kid you not.
I didn't know that.
And I was like, I
Sure.
could give it a shot. I don't know. And I was like, well, I'll tell you what, I need something to take my mind off of life. I was like, how about I'll try and sell your table if you teach me how to make them. And so Jay was like, yeah, okay, let's do it. And we had like a little 500 square foot shop that we worked in. And so I just jumped in and I was like, I'm a real estate agent. You got to list houses to sell them. So I was like, surely you just got to list a table to sell it. So I just took pictures and listed it everywhere I could. And Jay and I started working in the shop together and just farting around and making stuff. And as soon as that listing was live, the next day I got a phone call and someone was like, hey, I like that table. I don't want it. And I was like, my heart sank. And they're like, can you make me this? And I was like, maybe. And I went to Jay and I was like, hey, Jay, can we make this? And he'd be like, yeah, we can make that. And so I called the person back, like, yeah, I can make this for this price. And, got a sale. Like my very first lead, I made a sale.
Sure.
And then, the next day, 3 people called. And a couple days later, I had 5 more phone calls, all from this table that Jay had made. So I went back to Jay and I was like, Jay, man, I think we got a business here.
Yeah, right.
I was like,
I think we're onto something.
Is this something that you want to do full time? And he was like, yeah, I would love to. And that was February of 2017.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. Time frame.
Yeah. And then by March, we had enough business coming in to where we were like, man, we gotta get a bank account. We gotta get a a credit card. We gotta we gotta set up an LLC. And we had customers walking in. I was like, we're gonna have to get insurance.
You hadn't done any of that yet?
Nothing. No. It had just been like, we didn't intend to.
Sure.
We just intended to have a release after work of just, making stuff.
Something on the side.
Right.
A hobby.
Yeah,
Sure.
and Jay had been doing it for like 8 years at that point.
Okay.
Right. So he's like the master woodworker, totally in charge of the projects and building and everything.
Right.
So he had plenty of experience by that point, and I had plenty of sales experience, and we just kind of meshed. It kind of worked, and it was in March, Jay and I decided that we're going to give it a shot. We're going to go full time. And it took us till July before we could phase out of the businesses that we were in.
Okay.
And then so July 15th, it was 2017, we were 100% KC Custom Hardwoods.
Nice. That's a great story. So as far as it goes for you personally, though, I think it's interesting. It sounds like, from the experience that you had with the business experience in college, right, the IBE program, and then moving into a sales job with a company where it was 100% commission-based, but it was a larger company.
Right.
And then moving into real estate, it's almost like you were slowly just kind of shredding layers, right? Like you were kind of just taking one chain off at a time. And I don't mean it in a bad way, but just in that you were learning more, you were getting more experienced, and you were just sort of growing, and you needed less and less eventually to the point where it's like, okay, it's like all roads led to eventually you being
right.
A co-founder of your own
I could
business.
do it on my own, yeah.
That's actually doing it 100%, on your own for yourself with your partner.
Right. And if it wasn't for college, I probably never would have had the ability to step up and believe in myself, right?
Sure.
And obviously if it wasn't for college, I wouldn't have got the sales job that required a college degree, right? And then while I was at the sales job, they actually taught me how to sell, how to run your own business,
Yep.
And then the real estate was good practice at running my own business
That's great.
the real business that we're in today.
Sure. So
yeah.
No, it's good. That's a great story. What and then over the last few years, with KC Custom Hardwoods, obviously it's grown, right? So you guys have moved into a larger space.
Oh yeah.
You've grown your team. What does the business look like now, or what is, if we can kind of take those 2 years and shrink them into a few minutes? How have things grown?
Oh my God, it's grown insanely fast, which has been a blessing. We're very, very happy for it. So we started out in a 500 square foot shop. It was actually a 1,000 square foot building, but we split it with another woodworker, right?
Okay.
And then within a month, we had to take the whole space over, and that guy was happy. He's like, good, I didn't want to do this anymore anyway. So we had 1,000 square feet, and then we had to rent the space next door to us, 1,300 square feet total. So this is by like October, probably.
Okay, so not long, just a few months.
Just a few months, right. And then by the end of that year, by November, we were like, man, we're growing out of this space already too. We've got to find our own space somewhere. So by January, we had moved into the place that we're at now, which was a 4,000 square foot building. And by March, I guess it's 2018, we had hired our first employee, somebody to help relieve the pressure off of Jay in the wood shop. Because as your company gets bigger and bigger, it started out me and Jay building furniture together, kind of taking sales every once in a while if they came in, to, holy crap, now we've got to do accounting, now we got to do marketing, and now we actually have to pay for this big building. So I ended up doing more sales, less woodworking, but I still do woodworking.
Do you?
Oh yeah, totally. You gotta stay in the business.
That's smart.
Right. You gotta keep a good pulse on it so we can innovate and whatnot too.
Yep.
But so 2018 we moved into a 4,000 square foot building, and by the end of that year we had also leased the space next to us too, and then we'd also leased the space in Olathe that we use as like a yard storage space for logs and stuff. So we've gone from 2 guys, 500 square feet, to now we've got 6,000 square feet. Got our furniture business. We've got a woodworker store where we sell wood and supplies and stuff like that, and 4 employees.
Why don't you tell, though, viewers or listeners what's unique about you guys and what's unique about the wood that you use and everything else?
Right. So it helps to know the backstory.
Yeah.
So Jay's backstory, we were in college. His parents have a big farm in Garden City, Missouri, and they went on vacation. And they're like, hey, college kid, while we're on vacation, come check on the farm for us. Because it was like, 2 weeks in Alaska or Hawaii or wherever they were at. And so Jay goes back to the farm, and he's on the farm, and he finds a group of loggers illegally logging the property.
Really?
And so he calls his dad, and every once in a while a farmer will get their property logged to thin it out for...
Makes sense.
Yeah. His dad goes, no, I didn't intend on anybody logging. Call the cops, run them off, whatever you got to do.
Yeah.
So, it was like a semi-truck full of logs that they had.
Really?
Yeah, it was a lot. So
Holy cow.
Jay, made him unload it and called the cops and did whatever he did. And was left with just a bunch of trees that had no business being cut down, and didn't want to settle for like a lifetime supply of firewood.
Sure.
So being in college, did a little research. What do people do with this? And he had just got out of the Navy, so he actually had bought a sawmill and started milling slabs and building furniture out of these trees that were cut down illegally. And to this day, we still kind of follow those same principles. So we really believe that though we make custom furniture, we believe the true value in our work is preserving our natural resources. So every tree that we get is always a tree that had to come down for some particular purpose, whether it's illegal logging, which is where we get a lot of them, unfortunately, or construction, or trees just die, right?
Sure.
Storm damage, something like that. That's where we get all of our lumber. We mill it ourselves, we dry it all ourselves, and then we use that lumber to build custom furniture. So everything has, a little bit of a story of, why the tree came down, where it came down, and
Sure.
every once in a while we can find a story that really connects with somebody, which is kind of the best part of the job.
It is. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, we made a bar top for a guy, and we were just BSing and telling him about where the tree came from, and it was the tree of his best friend's house when he was a little kid that he played underneath as a kid. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was like, that warms your heart. If anything's going to warm your heart. Yeah,
and that can almost be a family heirloom, right? I mean, that's a piece of furniture that should be around for a very, very long time.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So everything that we do is custom furniture, and everything we do is, sustainable. And that's kind of the values that we've built ourselves on.
Yeah, that's great. But 100% of the wood and the lumber that you guys have is salvaged.
Right.
Primarily locally?
100% locally. Springfield, Missouri is the furthest we've gone.
Really? That's the farthest you guys have gone, huh? It's all been that close.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong, too. If you want a table made from a particular species of wood or something,
it's not gonna be
we'll buy it, we'll bring it in,
Okay.
I'm happy to build a table like that.
Sure.
But for what Jay and I personally do, we're milling our own lumber, and we're not going to take something if you just cut a tree down and try and sell it to us.
Got it.
That's just not our style. We want to.
Sure.
Yep. We want to recycle.
That's good. That's fantastic. So what does when we're thinking about what's next, right? What does the future look like for? I mean, it's I've joked with other people that we've interviewed or talked with on the show that when you're in college and you're interviewing for jobs, everybody always asks you, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And that's one of those questions that nobody asks you once you actually have a job. It's just very much an interview question, right?
Yeah.
But like applying that to your business and your life now, I mean, what do you see the next 5, 10 plus, 15 plus years looking like?
Yeah, that's a good question.
How far out do you plan, or at this point?
Yeah, so Jay and I actually talk about this all the time.
Okay.
Where are we going? How are we going to get there? Why are we going to go there? What's our real motivations? So as a company, right now we're 100% custom furniture shop, right? One thing we're working on is creating furniture collections. So we found, being a custom furniture shop, that we turn off a lot of customers because they don't want to go through the process of picking out a piece of wood and all the details and everything. They just want to say, I want that one, and they want to pick that one, right? So in the immediate term, we're working on building out furniture collections.
Nice.
That way it'll be an easier buying process for our clients.
Okay.
We're also working on refining our sales process, which will help our clients be able to pick out the style of table they want a lot faster, a lot easier for them. So that, I think, will help kind of propel us into the future.
Okay.
Hopefully, the simple collections of, hey, here's a product that we can reproduce, will help people, purchase more from us and more frequently. But as we look like 5 years down the road, our main goal is to have our own freestanding building. Right now, we rent a warehouse, and it's fine. It's cheap rent and it gets the job done. But we'd like to be in our own building with our own yard. Have a showroom kind of built into the front of it, where it's a better experience for our customers. That's probably like a 3 to 5 year plan for us, is actually getting off on our own, not relying on a landlord for rent. Also with our collections too, it'd be nice to, partner with furniture stores and be able to have some of that, extend our reach a little bit further. And I think, not being total ground up custom with that type of stuff will help us do that. Obviously, 10 years, 5 years, we'd like to have hundreds of millions of dollars in sales.
Sure.
Too. That'd be great as well.
Right, no, I get it.
But yeah, and then, better equipment. And we've got a kind of a structure on, okay, we're going to buy this piece of equipment. It's going to make us this much money. We're going to buy this piece of equipment. It's going to make us this much money. So we kind of have our plan built out around those. And I won't go into the detail about which equipment and why. But yeah, that's kind of what our future looks like.
Sure. That's good. Good for you guys. I wish you all the best of luck, and I have no doubt that you guys will get where you want to go.
Yeah, thanks.
When you think about your future, personally, right? And now this is thinking long term, but it's the nature of what we do here, right? At Falcon Wealth Advisors, right? In our business, we talk to people about their long term plans, their long term planning. I mean, you're obviously a young man, and you're building a business, and you have a long life and career ahead of you. Do you ever think about life after work?
All the time.
Do you?
Yeah.
What does that look like to you?
I don't think there is such a thing for me.
Okay, that's fair.
I am a busybody type of person. Not like a get in your business type of thing, but my wife hates it because I constantly have to be doing something.
Say she would verify.
Oh yeah, she would verify. Like it's Saturday, she wants to sit down and do nothing, and I'm like bouncing off the walls. Like got to go somewhere, got to go do something, got to start some project.
Yep.
So if we got to the point where Casey Custom Hardwoods was on autopilot, or a bigger company acquired it or something like that, I would probably just dive into another project. I just keep going and going and going and going.
That's good.
But maybe less and less time involved, I suppose, would be nice.
Right.
And I've got the entrepreneur thing going, and my wife works for a big company and does the 401k thing and has a nice steady career going too.
Good.
So we
kind of have a good balance there for each other.
Yeah, we have both aspects.
Yep, that's good. But you're doing what you're doing is going to keep you long term. I think that's what keeps you sharp. It's what keeps you learning. It's what keeps you educated. You go from one project to the next. And,
right.
That's good.
And you're constantly having to take classes and learn about the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. It's like you think college is the end of your education? Not even close.
No, not at all. Right. It's just like we said. It's sort of that foundation. It's obviously it starts before that, but I think at least for you and I was the same way in that I started taking things very much more seriously in college.
Right.
And then since then I've, almost kind of started to have like a genuine curiosity toward everything to try to learn as much as I can.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like the type of person where, okay, now I need a website for Casey Custom Hardwoods. Well, how do you do that? Okay, well, I'm going to go take a website building class. I'm going to
figure out how to do it myself.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, that's great.
And not the free ones. I'm going to pay for the one that costs money and and then now we have a great website. So
nice. Yeah. Okay. Well, good. Well, best of luck to you guys. I want to kind of switch gears here a little bit. This next segment is called the Mule Minute. This is a fan favorite. So this is the Mule Minute is sponsored by Falcon Wealth Advisors, and really what the design of this particular segment is I'm going to rattle off some questions at you. I have 10 questions, and we say that we're going to give you 60 seconds to answer them. There's obviously not a stopwatch in here, but I really am just kind of looking for what's the first thought, what comes to the top of your mind.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. No pressure, right?
Okay. No pressure. Yeah. So, all right. So to kick off the Mule Minute here, I'm gonna start it easy for you. One, what's your favorite food?
Bacon cheeseburger.
Ooh, that sounds pretty good. Okay.
Not the best one for you.
That's okay. Favorite place to travel?
Probably to the beach.
Okay.
Any beach.
Any beach.
Yeah.
I like it. 3, retire when?
Never.
All right, good answer.
Never.
Okay. 4, our 1, are you a Chiefs fan? And 2, what do you think their record will be this year?
Yes, I'm a Chiefs fan. Let's say undefeated.
Okay, I like it.
I'm a hopeful Chiefs fan.
16-0.
Yeah.
Optimism reigns eternal. All right, that's good.
I believe in them.
That is funny. 6, stocks or bonds?
I would have to defer that to my financial advisor. Corey, would you mind answering that question for me?
And while I'm not Nick's advisor, I'd be happy to answer that one for you. You take the risk while you're younger, right? So not specific investment advice. Okay, if you could go back in time to any time period historically, when would you go back to?
Ooh, that's a tough question. Like to live forever, or just like
to visit?
To visit
for however long you wanted.
Man, I don't know. I would probably go back to, this is a tough question. Maybe like the Revolutionary War type period.
Sure.
Kind of see how the country was founded, or probably somewhere in there, or maybe the Renaissance over in Europe. That'd be kind of cool to see.
Agreed. That would be a neat one too. Okay, good. Next one. This will back to your days of being in the band. If you walked into an establishment and they had a karaoke machine and you had to sing one song, what song would you sing?
Oh God, I don't know. I'm not a singer. I don't like to sing songs.
If you had to sing one.
I would probably sing a Sublime song. I don't know.
All right, that's fair. Good enough.
Yeah.
Favorite way to spend your free time?
Right now, I have a son. He's only 14 months old, so my free time has been dedicated to him because I work a lot. So, any chance I get, I want to spend with him.
That's good.
Yeah.
If you could try any one profession other than your current profession, what would it be?
Ooh, I would probably try being a professional musician.
Okay, good. What's your instrument?
Guitar.
Guitar, okay.
Yeah.
And then lastly, what is the number one piece of advice that you'd give someone?
Go for it.
Go for it.
Yeah, that's my advice. I was always like a timid, kind of in the background type of guy. And once I realized that, your life is dependent on you taking a chance, taking a risk, putting yourself out there, my whole life changed. So every time I think about, should I do this? Should I not do this? As long as it's like not a really bad decision, like illegal or something, but if it's like a business decision, I'm like, I'm going to try it. I'm going to go for it. Maybe it'll work. Maybe I'll get laughed at. I'll find out. And, you have a lot of failures, but you have a lot of wins. And if you don't put yourself out there, you'll never do it.
Nice, good. So go for it. I like it.
Yeah,
I like it. Well, thank you for participating. You did a good job.
Thanks.
So we usually have a little bit of fun with that. So the last question that I have for you is just something that we've asked of our team here internally, and then also other guests, and just the nature of our business, right? It revolves around finance, and you being a business person yourself, having the business degree also. I want you to kind of think back before that, if you can. What is the first lesson that you learned about money?
The first lesson that I learned about money.
Or maybe what's an impactful memory or one of the first lessons that you've learned just about money itself?
Let's see. My father would teach me about money. Mm-hmm. And one thing that he always taught me was it was always good to have cash, not to rely on debt or not to rely on debt to pay for things. And that it was always, if you're running a business, you always need to have a good stockpile of cash around and never to get low on it. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing that I've always taken with me, even in personal finances.
Sure.
I hate seeing the savings account go down below a certain level. I'll do whatever I can to make sure it stays at that level or above.
How old were you when your dad taught you that?
I was like 12.
Okay, all right, so pretty young.
Yeah.
That's good though, but it was clearly impactful, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, I think that's about all the time that we have for today. So again, I appreciate you taking the time to come on here, and hopefully our viewers, our listeners, have something that they can take away from it. But I think I really like your piece of advice of just go for it, right?
Thanks. Yeah.
I think that's kind of what has got you to where you are today. I think really just the decision to go to college, right, and to start studying, to take it seriously, to become the president of the business internally in a class,
right,
to your career, to a change into real estate, to eventually having your own business, right? That journey doesn't happen, or that progression doesn't happen if you don't go for it, right? If you don't step outside of that comfort zone.
Exactly.
So that's good. But again, I thank you for your time here today. We certainly appreciate all of our viewers and our listeners here. As a reminder, our show is on YouTube, so Central Missouri Alumni Stories you can find on YouTube. You can also find it anywhere you listen to podcasts, whether that's Apple Podcasts or Google or Spotify, whatever it might be. So you want to make sure that you press the subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes that come out. I am continuing to line up guests for this show, so if you're interested or if you know someone that's interested, please reach out to me directly. You can find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @Cory Bittner KC. You can also email me. It's just Cory@FalconWealthAdvisors.com. And then, Nick, as far as it goes for you, if somebody is interested in learning more about Kansas City Custom Hardwoods, how could they go about finding you?
Our website is a great spot, kccustomhardwoods.com. Mm-hmm. We're also on Facebook, KC Custom Hardwoods, and Instagram, KC Custom Hardwoods.
All right. Well, thanks again, Nick. I appreciate your time, and thank you all for listening and watching, and hope you have a great day.